Hi everybody, welcome to the Lord of the Reads. In today's video, we're going to be going over my January wrap-up. I finished all my books for January with about a week to spare. And yes, that is very exciting news because I wasn't sure how I was going to do because I had a few large books and then a classic. So, we can go ahead and jump into the first book. So the first book that was on the list was a nonfiction, so I chose How to Write a Damn Good Novel 2 by James N. Fry? Yes, that one. And I really enjoy reading books about how to write stories. I think the entire idea of premise and how to build a story and diverse characters and dynamics and stuff like that is all really interesting. And this one was done extremely well. This is like advanced tips. I think the first one was just basic, general, how to write a story, and this one is more like extra advanced, or not, more advanced things. So, really enjoyed this. Also really informative and helpful, so hopefully I'll be using what I learned from this one soon. The next book that I read was The Adventures of Robin Hood by Paul Creswick. I was slightly apprehensive to read this one because I already had some big books I had some big books on this list that I picked, and then a classic on top of it. Wasn't sure how that was going to go. But what I found out about this book is that as far as classics go, it's actually really fast-paced and not as dense as things like Charles Dickens. Like, so much faster-paced and easier to get through. Also, I was weighing this against, like, the Disney adaptation of Robin Hood. It was not close. This gave a lot of background, which was actually really helpful for how the story went along. So, having that background and why Robin Hood became a thief was actually really interesting because I didn't know that because they didn't include it in the adaptation. So that was really interesting. I think this came out at 4-star after I read it. It was super good. I stayed up late to finish it. It was amazing. The ending was spectacular, and the entire journey that he took from being a boy to being the head of the group of thieves was super interesting because I didn't know that. So this was definitely a really good book that I will probably read again at some point. The next book I read was the first volume of Soul Eater by an author that I cannot pronounce the name of. So, yes. Mangas are not really my thing. I prefer full-length novels just because I like the words and the description. I do enjoy mangas, graphic novels, things like that, but I will usually prefer full-length novels. But Soul Eater, I read the first volume, and then I read the second and the third volume after that, and I actually really enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It came out at 4-star, and it's about... I'm going to try to give a description. It's kind of about this girl, and she has a weapon that can turn into a human, and the weapon has to eat 99 human souls and then the soul of a witch to become a powerful weapon. And so they're trying to get the 99 souls and the soul of a witch so that he can eat them. And as far as the concept goes, it's super interesting. One thing I did, find out while reading that was the characters were super quirky. Like, they each had one specific flaw that they each had that kind of progressed the story. At least the three main characters did. They each had one flaw that was, like, extremated. Like, they took that flaw to the extreme, and it was really interesting in the characters to see how they interacted through those particular flaws. So that was really interesting, and actually a really good book. I liked it better than I thought I would, so I'd say that's a good thing. The next book that I read was Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. I loved The Hunger Games. It was spectacular, and I knew as soon as I read it that I wanted to put this on my January TBR. So when I was able to fit it in, I was super excited. And this book, I loved it. I liked it better than the first book. The plot in this one, I can't really say anything because it would give spoilers for what happened in the first book. The first book is about a young girl named Katniss who volunteers to go into the Hunger Games so that her sister doesn't have to. And in the Hunger Games, there are 2 children, a boy and a girl from each district, that have to go to an arena and fight till only one person is left alive. I loved it. It was spectacular. I really like dystopian. Actually, 3 of the books on this list are dystopian. It's amazing. I usually will read fantasy, some science fiction, but recently I've been wanting to read a lot of dystopian, and this is one of the ones that I picked up. And this book, the plot was so amazing, and the way it was carried out, I was not expecting half the things that happened in this book. After reading the first book, I had this entire idea of where the second book was going to go, and it didn't go there, and it was amazing. I'd have to say that the plot, the characters are all very good, but I think what I like about this book particularly was the plot, and the plot was super intricate, and the symbolism and the ideas, it was all amazing, and one of my favorite books that I read this month. The next book on this list is The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. This was, I think, the last book that I read this month. Yes, this was the last one besides my nonfiction pick. And I had started this book before, and I think I got about a quarter of the way through before I put it down for a reason that I can't remember. And I knew that I wanted to get back to it because I wanted to read the entire series, and also I wanted to read some of Patrick Ness to see what I thought. And this was amazing. It came out as a 4-star, I think, once I tallied the rating. And at the beginning, I was actually thinking that it would get closer to a 3, possibly a 2-star, just because it was kind of slower, and I didn't see that the plot was really going anywhere. The intrigue was super high for this book. It's basically about a boy who lives in this town where men can hear each other's thoughts, and there was a germ that killed off all the women. And the concept of people hearing each other's thoughts, that's always something that I love to read about. And here it was done really well, but at the beginning I didn't really see the plot going anywhere for the first 100 pages or so. And it might just be because I read the first 100 pages before I put it down, so that might be why that I was just rereading and I wasn't getting the newness of reading it, if you will. But I loved it. It was really done really well, and the characters is one of the things that I really love about this book. The plot was good, and there was a lot of twists in there. The entire book kept you guessing. This is one of the books where it makes you believe one thing before it completely knocks that idea on its head and gives you something else. It's spectacular. Books like that keep you guessing, and you have to think while you read it in order to fully grasp the concept. I love it. But the thing about this one is that not only does it have a really great plot with lots of twists, the characters, oh my gosh, the characters. Even from the beginning, you can see exactly who the characters are, what they're wanting, what their motives are, who they are as people, super clear. All the characters, you know what drives them, what they like, what they don't like, and it's super interesting to read a book that has such a well thought out plot and plot twists, but also has really good characters and character arcs and build-ups and things like that. So this is definitely one that I really enjoyed and would recommend. So the last book that I read in January, it is the pièce de résistance of the entire reading month. This was my favorite book of the month by far. It was I don't even have words to describe how wonderful this book was. And that is The Toll by Neal Shusterman. I was hesitant going into this. I read Scythe and Thunderhead sometime in the maybe late 2020, and I looked at reviews on this, and so many people said that they didn't like it because of what happened in the end. And I can't really tell you because this is the last book in the series. The first book is about a world where there is no natural death. Humans have conquered it. They've become advanced because the internet has turned into the Thunderhead artificial intelligence, and it's practically perfect and can control the world in perfect unison. Except now that there's no death, people can't die of natural causes, and the population has grown, and they have to keep the population down. So Scythes, there are special people that have to go and kill off certain people periodically to keep the population down, and it's called Gleaming. And the first book was spectacular, and the second book was even better, and I thought that this was going to be a letdown just because so many people said that they didn't like it, and I was really apprehensive going into it for that reason. But once I read it, I actually thought that this was going to take me a while. I think I finished this in like 5 days. It was... I can't even describe. I powered through this one, and once I got to the ending, that was the part that people said that they didn't like, was the ending. And while I will say that the ending was kind of sad, like from the sense of, I can't really say because it would spoil the entire series, but the ending was slightly sad. Some of the things that had, like the main plot point that happened at the end of the book was something that I thought was sad. However, as far as the book in general, it wasn't a bad ending. It was actually really good. And it actually probably, I could imagine that it could be like taken further just because of where it ended. But this is a wonderful ending to the series, and it's my favorite book of the trilogy. It's spectacular. And one of the things that I really liked, the plot in all 3 of the books, it was spectacular. I have probably, besides obviously my favorite book, Lord of the Rings, I don't think I've ever read a book that has such a, like, complex but also easy to understand plot. Like, there's so many ducks and weaves in it, but it's also super simple to understand, and by far my favorite book that I read this month. And the characters are super well developed, and there is a clear arc. Even the antagonist is interesting to read about. There are so many books where I can't stand to read from the antagonist, and actually, I do enjoy the antagonist perspective. However, some of them are just so dislikable that I can't read it. And some of them are so dislikable, but I still like the intrigue of reading from their point of view. This book, even the antagonist was interesting to read about. And the antagonist sidekick, probably one of my favorite characters. It was the entire plot of how the antagonists, the bad guys, how they were trying to defeat the good guys, and how that entire device was kind of pulled out. Even they were interesting to read about. Like, every single character in this book was interesting to read about from their perspective. And by far, my favorite book that I read this month, and actually a contender for one of my favorite books of 2020, probably, or 2021. Yes, 2020 is over. 2021. Probably going to be one of, at least on my top 10, because this was amazing. Well, those were all the books that I read in January for my T-Bingo R TBR game. I really hope that you enjoyed. I had a lot of fun raving about this book for 10 minutes. So I enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. So if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know down in the comments below what you read in January and what you thought about it. And with that, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!